been a hot minute since we've taken a look at a pre-built. This is actually a PowerSpec PC from Micro Center. You know, I hate to kind of admit it, especially as a build your own enthusiast, but this is an absolutely unbeatable price point right now in the current economy for a high-end gaming PC that is still within the budget of what a lot of people would be willing to spend for a gaming PC. And I don't know who at Micro Center sold their soul to make this PC happen, like the SKU, the G757, because it is literally more valuable. Wait, what's the word I'm looking for? The sum of its parts is more than what this costs? Yeah, that's reverse. Like when they say, you know, it's greater than the sum of a... Just roll that ad real quick. The Antec C2M is a micro ATX case aiming to shake up the budget market by offering high airflow design and strong cooling support at just $69.99. It features mesh panels on the top, bottom, and side for massive airflow, while still helping keep dust under control. And there's a ventilated PSU shroud to improve vertical airflow through the system, which is especially important for modern high-power GPUs. Cooling support is surprisingly strong for the price, with room for up to 360mm radiator on top and a 240mm radiator on the side. It even includes a pre-installed 240mm reverse blade single frame fan for high airflow intake, plus an additional 120mm fan out of the box. The case also uses tool-free panel design, allowing for front, top, and side panels to be removed quickly for easier hardware installation and cleaning. Add in removable dust filters on the top and bottom, and maintenance should stay simple over time. For under $70, the C2M is clearly targeting builders who want strong airflow and modern cooling support and a compact micro ATX form factor without spending premium case money. To learn more, follow the sponsored link in the description below. Now I'm going to be fully transparent. I requested that we go pick up this PC, but this is not one of those scenarios where, like, if you go and you try and secret shop at, I don't know, Origin or Digital Storm or whatever companies are out there, I forget, like even like Zach's Tech Turf, right? He's a SI. If you order from them and they know you ordered from them, they put white glove treatment on it because they know it's going to go on a channel. This is different. This is a pre-built system that are built elsewhere in volume and then distributed to their stores amongst their own internal distribution system. So this was already built, already in a box, already sitting in their warehouse, wherever. The first thing that I checked was there any cut tape and new tape on the box? And the answer is no. It was one piece of tape. It was not cut and opened up or double checked or anything like that. In fact, we trust our reps over there that this was literally an off the shelf, put in the car, exactly as any customer would receive it, because that is important. So I want to point this out real quick. This is the G757. It is a high-end gaming rig. So the specs of this system, then I'll talk about the price and then we'll go through the build quality. I've already put it through some thermal testing and stuff. I've got one little thing so far I'm kind of not happy about, and we'll point that out in a minute. But 9800 X3D, Gigabyte B850 gaming Wi-Fi 6 motherboard. It's got a Gigabyte WindForce 5080, but more importantly, PowerSpec is an internal brand at Micro Center. So these are off-the-shelf parts, right? But they also make and distribute their own and sell internally in their stores their own storage, their own power supplies, and those are not present in this build. That's what's crazy about this. So in terms of RAM, it is running 32 gigabytes of crucial 6000 megatransfer CL36. So not the tightest, but not the loosest. It's really just kind of right in the middle. That RAM, by the way, on Amazon is $380 by itself. So let the price we're gonna talk about here really sink in. It's also running a crucial Gen 5 2 terabyte P510 drive, which is also a $380 product. It's like that's the only number Crucial knows, it's $380. Anyway, they didn't use PowerSpec or Inland or any of that. Like Inland is like the PowerSpec brand. They didn't use Inland in there at all, where they could have, which is crazy. Power supply is a Cooler Master 850 watt. It is running a Cooler Master Elite 240 AIO. It is running a Lee LandCool chassis, and it is absolutely not like cutting any corners with any like weird tray type stuff or OEM grade stuff. It is literally an off-the-shelf PC. You could go buy the parts and put it together yourself and have exactly the same rig. The price of this is $2499. Yes, I'm aware $2,400 is a lot of money today, but you know what? Even 5 years ago, when people would ask me like, hey, I got a XYZ budget to spend, it was always somewhere between like $1,500 on the low end to $2,500 on the high end. People were willing to spend, even before the crazy pricing, $2,500 on a rig. So the pricing of this system, when I was trying to come up with like, hey, if I was gonna shop for a Prebuilt now, what would I buy? If you live near a micro center, that is absolutely like an impossible price to match on your own. Because of their bundles and stuff, we tried to go ahead and like say, can we match this part for part? No, we couldn't, because by shopping our local Tustin store, certain parts were not in stock. The graphics card, not in stock. This cooler, only available in 360, which doesn't work in this particular case, at least not with the way it's configured, because they're using the 140 fans. I think they're 140. 140 fans that come with the chassis on the front and then the 120 on the back. I can't get that exact chassis. And then this exact motherboard obviously was like kind of a part of the bundle, so we couldn't make it part for part. But you know where I could do exact part for part was Amazon, and it came in at $3,000. Not including the fact that this is fully assembled by Micro Center in their off-site, wherever they build their systems and then distribute them. Comes with a singular warranty and point of service if you need it. So that's what I found interesting about this. Let's go ahead and I guess talk about some of the performance, and then we'll do a teardown, because I'm curious as to what the build quality is like, because we've all seen the Steve videos and the kind of stuff they send him. I'm thinking they're trying to drive the man crazy at this point. Like, I don't understand how any of these SIs can mess up that badly. Okay, so first things first, I did a GPU test and a CPU test. What we're looking for here is to make sure that frequencies are going where they're supposed to go. So we start with GPU. This is a static Steel Nomad Explorer run where the scene is moving, but the camera angle is not. The graphics card goes and boosts up exactly where it's supposed to. It's a 400 watt card, and it's boosting up to over 2,800 megahertz and then normalizing around the high 2,700 megahertz, which is exactly where this card is expected to land. Temperatures, scrapes 70, doesn't quite cross it, which is actually very impressive considering the fact that the fans in the chassis are tied to the hub for the Li & Li, and they're taking, I'm not sure what they're taking into account, and that's what we'll talk about in a second, because the fans do not ramp up in this chassis under a gaming load because it's not tied to the GPU sensor. So as you can see right here, when we look at the fan curve chart, the fans like kind of bumped up slightly, probably because of an overall heat saturation within the case, but it only bumped up like 50 RPM, maybe like not even a whole 100 RPM. But it didn't hurt the GPU performance at all. It didn't hurt the clocks. It didn't hurt the GPU temperature. Everything stayed well within spec of where it should be. And the cool part about that is the fact that we had a very silent, or very quiet system that does not actually have an issue with thermals when it comes to the GPU. CPU, I run OCCT on medium data set using the SSE algorithm, and then it was running for 30 minutes, just like the GPU test. And what we're looking for here is any sort of thermal throttling or anything like that. As you can see, the CPU bumps up into the very low ADC range over time. You can see in the beginning it ramps up to the mid 70s, and then as the workload increases, you can see the load on the CPU increases, so do the temperatures. But this is where I need to investigate exactly what is controlling the fans, because the fans for the chassis also did not speed up for the CPU load. I figured if they were tied to CPU load, we would see those fans ramp up when the CPU goes under stress. And as the temperatures go up, so would the chassis fans exchanging the temperature. Now the AIO, as we do our teardown, you'll see is actually tied to the same hub as the chassis fans. So that means the AIO fans themselves were also not speeding up. So whereas we did not get any sort of thermal issue and a difficult workload to perform on this CPU with a 240 watt AIO, which is like probably the smallest I would go with, honestly, for a modern CPU. Just make sure turbo state gets to stay as high as possible, right? Let the C state stay up there. So go with an oversized cooler if you can. This is only a $39 cooler. So if they could have fit the $50 360 version in here, that would have been a little better. But again, we weren't thermal throttling. We weren't having any issues with frequencies. Everything was going exactly as advertised as what we should be getting out of the box. But I still think I would have liked to see the chassis fans ramp up so we could have a faster exchange of air, fresh air coming into the system, which would have probably led to a cooler temperature overall on the CPU. So performance was what we were expecting. VRAM on the GPU stayed nice and cool. That's more of a GPU review at that point. The chassis was not limiting the GPU's performance, so that's important. You can also see as the GPU ramps up in its test, the NVMe temperature starts to drop slightly, and that's because the fact that their axial fans are blowing air across the motherboard, and even warm airflow over a passively cooled thing is better than nothing. So it actually cooled down the drive slightly. You could see how the drive started at a higher temperature, dipped down, then it came back up slightly. But overall, it was kind of refreshing to see that you got everything you paid for with this system. Now, the other side of the coin when it comes to a pre-built is, obviously there's value, but there's build quality. Let's go ahead and take a look at that, shall we? Okay, so first things first, I'm gonna go ahead and turn this on before we tear it down. I want you to see the color out of the box is set to white, which is kind of nice. Now, because everything is actually tied into, you can hear the RPM. That's like the same tone we had just about the entire time. So I'm also thinking that we do have the hub plugged into the motherboard. I haven't gone into the BIOS yet to see what logic is actually plugged in there to the hub. But one thing I don't like is if you take a look at the wiring, and whoever put these screws on, it might have been the Hulk, geez. I don't like the fact that they crossed white cables over the black PCB and such. So you can see the white cables right there. Not the prettiest routing. It just kind of yanked across. I feel like they could have easily kind of routed it underneath the cooler and then up. So at least it would have been, you know, straight. This is a minor gripe, but this is the kind of stuff that I feel like makes it look cheap. Like you can't do anything about the fact that they are white cables and they used the white cooler. I think maybe the black cooler would have been nicer, but again, I don't know if one of the reasons why we're seeing these parts used in this SKU exists because there was some sort of crazy arrangement where they bought this stuff in bulk at an extremely discounted rate or something, and so they're using what they have. It's a minor gripe because for the price of this unit versus the performance capability of it, it's kind of difficult to be like, I need a white cable crossing over black stuff, you know, but hey, $2,500 is no chump change, so the things that we can mention. When it comes to the color though, because this is a Lee & Lee case, you can see right here on the top of the chassis, we do have our control buttons right there. So C is for color, M is for mode. So if we push the C button, you can just cycle through and change the solid color to be whatever you want. Or you push the M button and you can go through all the different RGB puke modes, whatever kind of tickles your fancy. And as you can see, the AIO, because the header for that is plugged into the same hub that everything else is, it is, even though it's not a Lee & Lee product, is being controlled by the buttons on the front. So that's kind of nice. It's a little refreshing to not have it just be RGB puking out of the box, which so many people tend to do. Speaking of the hub and such, so this is a pre-installed hub from Lee & Lee. You can see cable management. We do have zip ties. Things are nice and tidy. Looks like we've got a number right here for the system, as well as signatures of people that have done checks on it. So it looks like we've had 1, 2, 3, 4 different people have interacted with this system to make sure that everything is copacetic with it. So this is kind of nice. If one of these scribbles is you, hey, good job. I think so far everything's looking pretty good on here. Drive sleds are still installed, even though these are products, you know, things I don't use anymore, like 2.5-inch drives. Customer may or may not want to add one later. They may have one that they want to use somewhere in a bin somewhere. So taking these off and taking them, you know, not providing them to the customer would be a bad thing. So I'm happy to see those. You can see cable management for our EPS is nice and tidy, just kind of tucked away right there. In fact, a lot of our cables are sort of just pushed in there. I like the fact that they pre-wired right here the SATA power. So if you do add drives here, the SATA power plug is already there. It's not sitting in a box that has a bunch of extra cables or something that you have to find and then figure out how you're gonna plug it in. It's already plugged in and it's already just sort of routed to where the user might potentially need it. So when it comes to GPU support, you can see right here, the GPU itself is actually being supported by an anti-sag bracket that uses the motherboard screws. So they use the standoff screws in this bracket that then the anti-sag bracket attaches to, which has a full rail of adjustability. That way they can ensure that the GPU is supported, as well as not hitting a fan or stopping the fan from turning or whatever. Because as you can see, it is a triple fan GPU. I don't know if this power supply, because I can't really see all the plugs, but it's kind of interesting to me that this power supply doesn't have a native 12-volt high power plug or 12-volt 2x6, and they are using the adapter for this. Don't have a problem with that though. It's just not the prettiest looking thing. If they had a native 12 volt, that would have been nice. Kind of surprised though that they chose to go this route instead of routing it down through here. Maybe, there's plenty of room to get it through there even though the drive cage is in the way. So you can see, once this is off, yeah, so there's the power supply right there, MWE Gold 850. This is not a modular power supply at all, and it does not have 12 volt high power. So that's kind of the caveat. They had to obviously use the adapter that came with the graphics card. I wish they had kind of tucked this wire right here a little bit, but again, these are minor gripes that we're really having to look for. Like if I just tuck that a little bit, everything does clearly appear to be seated fully. The cable is fully plugged in. There's not an aggressive bend. Okay, so here's our graphics card. Doesn't appear like there's any damage or anything on it. Maybe a couple of nicks here and there. Just nothing super fancy. It's just a nice 5080. $1,250 is what that exact 5080 costs at Micro Center. That should be an MSRP model as far as I'm concerned, but prices are what they are, right? Very no frills, doesn't even have lighting on it. I think most people watching this right now would absolutely be like, I'll take a 5080 with no lighting on it. Sure, threaten me with a good time. So here's that GPU retention system I told you about. That has to be manually installed because that gets installed, like you have a standoff that gets installed through the motherboard and then this mounts into it. And then this all had to be figured out the appropriate position for it. Because of the weird angle of this cutout right here in the case and the USB 3.0, they had to use a 3.0, a 90-degree adapter on here to be able to make that turn. So this is something they had to physically like source and add to this. Okay, next up is going to be CPU cooler. I'm curious as to the thermal paste application. Oh, one thing I needed to point out too, if you looked at the chart, I forgot to mention, is the fact that the pump was running full speed the entire time. Here's the drive right here. You can see there's no cooler whatsoever on that NVMe. And that's evident by the fact that we saw the temperature of that drop slightly when the GPU started to ramp up because as you can see, it's under the graphics card, which means the air that comes through the graphics card right here at the bottom is what was actually hitting that drive, causing a little bit of cooling to it. So it would be kind of nice to maybe have these fans not be in 0 dB mode. It is a dual BIOS card. It is in performance mode by default, not silent, which is interesting because the fans indeed went to 0 RPM. You can see that on the chart. That airflow on the drive would be nice. They can't really use the version that comes with its own heatsink because it would then interfere with the bottom of the graphics card and it won't seat all the way. It's rare to see a slot 1 drive under the graphics card these days. So this is just a concession they had to make. So to be able to get the cooler free, as you can see, it's wrapping around here. These are the 2 wires for the fan. The 2 wires for the fans for the top the AIO are these 2 right here. Oh, that is the rear fan. Okay, this is the rear fan. AIOs are coming through here. You can see it loops around. I have to go ahead and release some of their cable management. Cable management is nice. I've got no problems with this cable bundling at all. It makes sense. You can easily see what's what. Okay, so everything is free right there. Now I should be able to follow these. One of them is RGB pass-through, which is right here. Okay, that's going to the hub, and then that is the header that they were using for the hub right there. Interesting that it wasn't actually ramping anything up, personally. But again, the temperatures, they didn't really have an issue with it. You can see the fan curve move slightly when the GPU was under load. I was just surprised it didn't really seem to move at all when the CPU went under load. So I don't know if that's manually set to like a fixed RPM, but like I said, the temperatures didn't really suffer. So there's our Crucial DDR5 Pro. I have a feeling Crucial just like, when they pieced out on the consumer market, they just sold everything they had to Micro Center. I'm almost convinced of it. They were just like, you know what, we're making money hand over fist right now on the AI build out stuff. Here, we'll just make you a bulk deal, which is why there's so much Crucial in their bundle deals. Now they also have Corsair in their bundle deals. So that can't be the only thing, you know, when it comes to how they're making these builds possible. So Phil just asked me, what happened to that fan? Because it was all gray, you might have seen it already, but as I started wiping it, it started coming off. It looks like thermal paste. It's almost like maybe the cooler went onto there. So temperatures don't really seem to suggest that the cooler isn't making good contact, but we can go ahead and find out. So this cooler, as you can see, uses a unified bracket that uses both AMD and Intel mountings in one, which actually make, really good tie down points too. If you wanted to like, you know, let's say route the cables nice and neat, you could zip tie them down to those holes. So just something to keep in mind if you're building. So what we're looking for here as we take this off is the mounting pressure. If we see any sort of globs versus what looks really thin, then that would mean that's an area that didn't have really good mounting pressure.
It looks pretty solid all the way around. It doesn't look like they added more paste to this either, like they messed up and went, you know, and then and went, oh crap, and added more. That looks like the screen printed thermal paste application was never messed with. If they had added more thermal paste, you probably would have seen it squish out past the square, and that doesn't appear to be the case at all here. Now you can see, even though it looks pretty even on here, it does look like there was slightly crooked mounting pressure on here, but again, it didn't affect the temperatures at all. We can debate all day long about thermal paste applications and such, but this was screen printed, so it's pretty solid to me. There's not a whole lot really left to look at here. Everything is exactly as I would have expected it to be. The cable management was nicer than probably I would have done, to be honest. And the pricing is just absolutely near impossible to match. And yeah, this system is greater value than the cost of its parts. Only made possible by Micro Center. And that's why the biggest complaint people have about Micro Center is the fact that they don't live close to one. There's nearly 30 stores and there's still not enough. But anyway, there we go. It's been a minute since we talked about pre-builts, and you know what? If you live near one, they only go down from here. I mean, they have 5090 versions. Do you really want one? No, they don't need it. They have 5070 Ti versions, 5070 versions, 9070 XT versions, and they all just go down the price from where this one is, making it possible to still buy a gaming PC that's a high-end spec, enthusiast grade, and still, you know, not make you, and it's not bad to look at. It's not ugly. I just personally would have gone with the black cooler instead of the white to match the other black parts in here for a Stormtrooper rebuild. Then you wouldn't have the white cable showing, which is, again, the most minor of gripes to come up with. I don't know how Micro Center's doing it. This is not a sponsored message or anything from them, what I'm about to say. I don't know how much longer they can do that. This is probably definitely one of those while supplies last. I can tell you the Tustin store still has these in stock. I checked as of today, the day of filming this video, because we did get this about a week ago. I was worried that maybe by the time I got around to being able to do the testing and the teardown of this, that pricing might have gone up, but no. It's still on sale for $24.99 with an original price of $26.99, which is still $300 cheaper than Amazon's pricing. Look, there's a lot of rumors that pricing is gonna go up again with RAM. All right, now things have leveled, but Q3 is gonna be another ramp up. I don't know how long this is gonna be around, so if you guys are in the market, it's worth taking a look at. It performs exactly as I would have expected. Other than the cable management, you couldn't tell that this was a pre-built versus on a store shelf versus something we went in and bought the parts and put together ourselves. Only the cable management was a giveaway for that. All right, guys, thanks for watching. How do you feel about this price point? A 5080, a 9800 X3D, a 2 terabyte Gen 5 P10 drive, 32 gigs of Crucial 6000 mega transfer CL36, an 850 watt power supply, which might be your only limiting factor. That's right on the edge of what the 5080 needs. It's at the recommended level. A B850 with forward compatibility. I don't think you can justifiably argue the price point on this. All right, guys, thanks for watching. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.